The morning light filtered softly through the fractured glass of the sphere, casting a kaleidoscope of shifting patterns across the city below. From the crumbling balcony of the old council hall, Lira gazed out at the restless crowds gathering in the streets, workers, artisans, and rebels united by a common cause. The air hummed with anticipation, the weight of change palpable. Her heart thrummed with fierce determination. This was the moment she had been preparing for, the culmination of every whispered secret, every daring escape, every risk taken in the shadows. Today, she would break the chains, not just of glass, but of centuries of oppression. Kalen stood beside her, eyes scanning the horizon, ever watchful. "They're ready," he murmured, "but the ruling elite won't stand idly by." Lira nodded, her gaze steady. "Then we give them no choice." The crowd's murmur swelled into a unified roar as she stepped forward, raising her voice so it carried across the square. "People of the Glassbound, for too long we have lived trapped not just beneath this glass dome, but beneath the weight of fear and injustice. Today, that ends. Today, we reclaim our city and our destiny." Cheers erupted, echoing against the crystalline walls. Yet beneath the hope lay tension. The city's fractures were not only physical but political, and old wounds ran deep. Later, in the shadowed confines of the ancient glassmaker's chamber, Eron unfurled aged scrolls and whispered incantations. The air was thick with the scent of molten glass and dust, flickering candlelight revealing intricate runes carved into stone. "These rituals," he explained, "are the key to unraveling the binding magic. But they carry a cost." Lyra's fingers traced the faded symbols, a chill running through her. "We're ready to pay it." Meanwhile, Mira convened a delicate meeting in the rebel stronghold's war room. Leaders from disparate factions eyed one another warily, old grudges simmering beneath polite words. "Unity is our strength," Myra urged, her voice calm but resolute. "Without it, we fall divided." Eyes met, some reluctant, others hopeful. Slowly, agreements were forged, not just about strategy, but about a new vision for the city. As night fell beneath the glowing sphere, Lira prepared for the ritual. The glass around her thrummed with latent energy, cracks pulsing like veins of light. The distant storm roared its approval or warning. None could tell. Hands steady, she began the incantation, weaving ancient power with her own. The sphere responded, trembling, alive. For a moment, it seemed the glass would shatter entirely, and with it, the city's future. When the light faded, a fragile silence hung in the air. Change had begun, but the path ahead was uncertain. The ruling elite would not surrender their power so easily, and the rebellion's fragile unity could falter under pressure. Lira knew this was only the first step. The chains were breaking, but would they fall free or be bound anew? Her eyes lifted to the fractured horizon, determination burning brighter than ever. The city's fate and her own hinged on what came next. "We break these chains," she whispered, "or we break ourselves." And with that, the dawn of a new era began, fragile but unstoppable. The air inside the core chamber was thick with tension, electric and heavy as Lira stepped cautiously forward. The walls, if they could still be called, that were no longer smooth glass but a lattice of crystal veins, pulsing with a faint light that seemed almost alive. Each beat sent tremors through the chamber, echoing like a heartbeat that grew ever more erratic. Around her, the broken shards of the sphere's heart glimmered, fractured and unstable, threatening to fracture further with the slightest provocation. Kalen was already there, crouched beside the largest shard, his hands steady despite the obvious strain. Ancient tools lay at his side, delicate instruments etched with runes, designed to manipulate the glass's magic without shattering it. His silver-streaked hair caught the light as he worked, his face set in grim concentration. "This is the last piece," he murmured, eyes never leaving the spiderweb cracks that had begun to spider outward like the limbs of some fragile creature. Lira swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the moment settle over her like a physical force. The city above depended on her now, the countless lives trapped inside the glass sphere, suspended between freedom and destruction, were held in precarious balance. She had fought so long, navigated betrayals, and uncovered secrets, but none of it had prepared her for this, the possibility that the very thing she sought to save might be beyond saving. "Kaelin," she said quietly, stepping closer, "what happens if it breaks?" He didn't look up, but the tension in his shoulders betrayed him. If it fractures completely, the entire sphere could implode. The magic holding the city aloft would collapse. A cold dread gripped her chest. The endless storm below would swallow them whole. The city would be lost. From the shadows, a soft rustle announced Ashara's arrival. Draped in her shimmering cloak, she approached with the grace of one who had witnessed centuries unfold. Her eyes, sharp and knowing, settled on the shard with a mix of reverence and sorrow. "You seek to repair what was never meant to be whole again," Ashara said, her voice an echo in the cavernous space. "The last shard is not just a piece of glass, it is a vessel of trapped power, bound by curses older than the city itself. To mend it fully is to awaken forces beyond control." Lira frowned. "Then what can be done?" Ashara sighed, her gaze distant. "There are two paths: to attempt repair and risk detonation, or to destroy it deliberately, severing the magic that holds the city together, but preventing a catastrophic explosion. Destroy it." Kellen's voice cracked. "That would mean the end of the city as we know it." "Yes," Ashara confirmed, "but it may be the only way to save the lives within." A heavy silence fell. The choice was grim trade, the certainty of destruction for the possibility of survival, or gamble on a fragile hope that could ignite disaster. Lyra's eyes drifted to the shard, its surface flickering with an inner light that pulsed like a heartbeat. She reached out a trembling hand, feeling the raw magic thrumming beneath her fingertips. The power was intoxicating, a siren call that promised control, dominion, and the ability to reshape the city entirely. But the cost was too high. "We destroy it," she declared, voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "Carefully, but decisively. We end this before it ends us." Kaelin nodded, swallowing his fear as he prepared the tools for the controlled destruction. Ishara began chanting softly, ancient words weaving a protective barrier around them. As Kaelin placed the instruments against the shard, the glass trembled violently, cracks racing like lightning across its surface. Lyra's heart pounded as the chamber filled with a blinding light and a deafening roar, the sound of the sphere's heart breaking. She braced herself, every muscle tensed, as the shockwave rippled outward. The protective barrier held, but the pulse of magic surged through the city, shaking buildings and rattling nerves. When the light dimmed, silence reigned. The last shard was gone. Lira exhaled, her body trembling with exhaustion and relief. But as she looked up, she saw the fissures spreading across the sphere's surface, new cracks forming like battle scars. The city had survived, but it was forever changed, and so was she. Outside the core chamber, the endless storm roared with renewed fury, as if mocking their fragile victory. Lira knew the road ahead would be longer and more perilous than ever, but for the first time, hope flickered within her, fragile shard of light amid the darkness. She stepped forward, ready to face whatever came next. "This is only the beginning," she whispered. And somewhere deep within the storm, the sphere trembled, waiting. The storm had been raging for days, a relentless fury below the glass dome that encased the floating city. Now, as the endless tempest reached its climax, the sky darkened to an almost unnatural shade of violet, and the very air thrummed with magical energy. From her vantage point atop the highest spire, Lira watched the tumultuous dance of lightning fork and flash across the horizon, each jagged streak casting eerie reflections upon the fissures that crawled like veins across the city's protective glass shell. Inside the core chamber of the sphere, where the ancient magic pulsed strongest, Lira stood alone for a moment, the world falling away to the storm's roaring symphony. The chamber was bathed in a shifting glow, the walls shimmering like liquid glass, alive with power. She extended her hands, fingertips brushing against the surface of the sphere's heart, a living, breathing thing that pulsed beneath her touch. The energy flowed into her, fierce and wild, like a wildfire racing through dry brush, threatening to consume and transform everything in its path. A shiver ran down her spine as the storm's voice whispered in the recesses of her mind. It was not a voice of words, but of sensations, the crackle of lightning, the howl of wind, the sharp scent of ozone and rain. It promised power beyond imagining, a chance to remake the city, the people, and the very world itself. Yet beneath its seductive allure lurked ruin, the potential for destruction so complete that nothing would remain but shattered glass and broken dreams. Behind her, Kaelin and Mira entered the chamber, their faces etched with a mixture of hope and dread. Kellen's eyes dark and steady locked on Lyra's, as if searching for the strength to believe. Myra, the ancient glassmaker, whose knowledge of the sphere's origins had guided them this far, adjusted her shimmering robes and offered a faint nod. "The storm's magic is volatile," she cautioned softly, "but it need not be our enemy." Lira drew a steadying breath, feeling the weight of the city and its people pressing upon her shoulders. The cracks in the glass were spreading faster now, thin splinters racing outward like the fingers of some great beast seeking escape. The rebellion below had stalled, uncertain whether to hope or despair as the very prison they sought to shatter teetered on the brink of collapse. "I can feel it," Lira murmured, her voice barely audible over the storm's growing roar. "The storm and the sphere are intertwined. If I let the storm's fury run unchecked, it will destroy everything. But if I harness it, I might protect what we've built and change what's broken." Kaelin stepped forward, placing a steadying hand on her shoulder. "You're the only one who can make that choice, Lira. We trust you." Myra's gaze was sharp and unwavering. "Remember, this sphere was forged not just to contain, but to balance. Your power is part of that legacy." Closing her eyes, Lira focused inward, reaching for the core of her magic and the storm's wild essence alike. The glass beneath her hands grew warm, then hot, the light intensifying until it was almost too bright to bear. She felt the storm's voice surge again, this time clearer, more insistent. It whispered of freedom born from chaos, of power unbound. But she also felt something else, a fragile thread of mercy, the hope for renewal rather than ruin. When she opened her eyes, they glowed with a fierce, glassy light, a mixture of resolve and compassion. With a deep breath, Lira began to weave the storm's energy through the sphere's magic. Not to break it apart, but to remake it. The cracks pulsed and shimmered, then slowly began to seal, though faint lines remained, reminders of the price paid and the change wrought. The chamber trembled with the effort. the storm's fury pressing against the fragile barrier between destruction and salvation. Outside, the city held its breath, the rebellion's uncertain hopes mirrored in the flickering lights of the glass dome. As the last echoes of the storm's rage faded into a calm hum, Lira collapsed to her knees, exhausted but triumphant. The sphere was forever altered, stronger yet more delicate, a symbol of the balance between power and responsibility. The endless storm no longer threatened to consume them, but its voice remained, a constant reminder of the forces at play. Kaelin knelt beside her, voice hoarse but hopeful. "You did it. You saved us." Lira looked up, her eyes reflecting the first soft light of dawn breaking beyond the glass. "We saved ourselves," she whispered, "but this is only the beginning. The city's fate is ours to shape with every choice we make." And so, beneath the calming sky and the healed glass dome, the people of the floating city faced the future, no longer prisoners of the storm, but masters of their own destiny. The legacy of the Glassbound was born anew, forged in the storm's embrace and tempered by the courage of one who dared to choose. The storm had ended, but its whispers lingered, promising challenges and wonders yet to come. Lyra's journey was far from over, and as the city stirred awake beneath the fragile sky, the true test of power and mercy was just beginning. The wind howled around the spire's peak, carrying the distant rumble of the endless storm below like an ancient beast awakening from its slumber. Lira stood at the pinnacle of the floating city, her gaze fixed on the sprawling expanse beneath the fragile glass dome that encased them all. The cracks she had nurtured over months now spread like veins of molten light, pulsing beneath her feet and racing across the sphere's surface. The air was thick with magic, tangible energy that hummed and thrummed in the silence before the storm. She lifted her hands, feeling the raw power coursing through her veins. A torrent of energy bound by her ancestors' legacy and the very essence of the glass sphere. Her skin glowed faintly, veins of light tracing patterns that mirrored the fractures in the dome. Around her, the city held its breath, as if sensing the monumental moment unfolding above. Kaelin emerged from the shadowed alcove behind her, his usual calm etched with concern. "Lira, the council is mobilizing. Lady Selene won't stand down. They fear what you represent." She nodded, eyes never leaving the horizon. "They misunderstand. This power isn't just for control, it's for change. But change always demands a price." Below, the storm churned with renewed fury. Lightning forked through the darkened skies, illuminating the glass dome's intricate web of cracks. Each fissure was a testament to her struggle between the weight of inheritance and the desperate hope for freedom. In the council chambers, tension crackled louder than the storm. Lady Selene stood at the center, her voice sharp and commanding as she addressed the gathered nobles and mages. "Lyra's recklessness threatens us all. The sphere is our fortress, our legacy. If it breaks, everything we know will be lost." A chorus of anxious murmurs rippled through the room. Yet Lyra's name carried a different weight, one that stirred fear and reverence in equal measure. The doors burst open, and Kaelin entered swiftly, his gaze locked on Selene. "She's not reckless. She's transcending limits you refuse to understand." Selene's eyes narrowed. "And what if her transcendence shatters the city? What then?" Kaelin's voice was steady. "Then we face the future, whatever it may hold." Meanwhile, in the quiet sanctum of an ancient chamber, the glassmaker awaited her arrival. The room was bathed in a soft glow from crystal glyphs etched into the walls, a language older than the city itself. As Lira approached, he extended his hands, guiding hers over the mysterious symbols. "This is the heart of the sphere's magic," he murmured, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. "To wield such power is to embrace both creation and destruction. You must decide what legacy you will leave." Lira inhaled deeply, feeling the steady pulse of the glyphs beneath her fingertips. The knowledge was overwhelming yet clarifying. Every choice carved a path, every action a ripple through the fragile balance of their world. Returning to the spire, Lira raised her arms, summoning the full breadth of her magic. The sphere responded instantly, the cracks flared brightly, casting kaleidoscopic light across the city's faces. The glass trembled, a symphony of tension and release. A surge of energy burst forth, shattering invisible barriers within her. She felt herself ascend beyond mortal limits, a convergence of power and purpose. The city below gasped as light cascaded through the fractures, transforming fear into awe. Yet even in triumph, a shadow lingered. Could she control this force without losing herself? Was the city ready for the freedom she might unleash, or would it crumble beneath the weight of change? As the first shards of dawn pierced the storm clouds, Lyra's voice rang out clear, resolute, and unyielding. "I am the heir of glass and storm. This city will rise, not as a prison, but as a beacon." The wind carried her words far and wide, setting hearts ablaze with hope and trepidation. Above the endless storm, the fragile glass sphere shimmered, no longer just a barrier, but a symbol of transformation. The final battle for the city's soul was at hand, and Lira stood ready to shape its destiny. Her journey was far from over. Yet in this moment, she was Glassbound ascendant, a force beyond fracture and fear, poised to redefine the very essence of power. The storm below roared in answer, but the city above was no longer merely trapped, it was alive, breathing and ready to face whatever came beyond the glass. The air in the tower was thick with stillness, broken only by the distant howl of the endless storm beneath the glass sphere. Lira stepped forward, her boots clicking against the cold stone, eyes scanning the city sprawling like a jeweled mosaic under the sunset glow. It was a city of light and shadow, of fragile beauty held captive by the transparent walls that both protected and imprisoned it. She breathed deeply, feeling the pulse of the sphere beneath her feet, a subtle vibration, like the heartbeat of an ancient creature. The fissures she had created spread slowly but inexorably, like veins carrying a deadly poison. Yet within her, a flicker of power stirred, a connection that had grown stronger with each day. A sudden chill swept the chamber, and the air shimmered with iridescent light. Before her, the glass walls rippled, and a figure emerged, a man clad in robes that seemed woven from the very essence of the sphere itself. His form was translucent, his eyes twin orbs of crystal fire. Eldrin, the city's founder, the first glassmaker whose hands had shaped the sphere, stood before her. Lira, his voice echoed, resonant and clear as the chime of crystal bells. "You have come far, but the path ahead is fraught with peril." She swallowed hard, awe and apprehension knotting her stomach. "Who are you?" she breathed. "I am Eldrin, the maker of this city's prison and its shield. I have watched through the ages as the glass held your people aloft, yet also bound them in silence. Now the cracks deepen and the balance falters. You must decide whether to mend what was broken or to shatter the bonds entirely." Lyra's mind reeled. Why show yourself now? Why reveal these truths? "Because the time has come," Eldrin answered, "for the heir of the Glassbound to wield the knowledge of the past. The sphere was forged not only from magic, but from sacrifice. It holds power beyond measure, but with power comes consequence." As he spoke, visions unfolded around them. Lira found herself transported back centuries, standing beside the first glassmakers. Their hands, glowing with raw magic, shaped molten glass with reverence and precision. The endless storm raged below, its fury captured within the sphere's delicate curves. She saw the faces of those who had given their lives to bind the city, their hopes entwined with the fragile walls. The vision faded, and Lyra's heart pounded with the weight of inheritance. "What must I do?" she asked. "Listen to the echoes of the past," Eldrin said. "Understand the cost. The sphere's magic is a double-edged sword, can protect or destroy. You must choose wisely." Suddenly, footsteps echoed in the chamber. Mara burst through the door, her auburn hair wild, eyes blazing. Behind her came Silas, the conflicted noble, his face pale but resolute. "Lira, we heard the summons," Mara said urgently. "The rebellion grows restless. The council tightens its grip. The city teeters on the brink." Silas nodded. "Eldrin's warnings are clear. The sphere's stability wanes. We have little time." Lira turned from the fading spirit to her allies, the burden of leadership settling heavy on her shoulders. "Then we must prepare for battle, for peace, for whatever comes. The past has spoken. Now we write the future." The glass beneath them pulsed faintly, casting fractured light that danced like shards of hope and fear. Outside, the storm's fury whispered promises of change, and the city held its breath, poised between destruction and rebirth. In the silence that followed, Lyra's resolve hardened. She would face the legacy of the Glassbound and forge a path beyond the storm, one that might finally free her people or bind them forever. But the echoes of the past were only the beginning, and the final crack was yet to come.